Going into the Game Awards, I think we all should have been on the same page about two things. Firstly, that the Game Awards are a stupid corporate circle jerk that no one should actually take seriously, but secondly, that Baldur's Gate 3 was going to sweep, because that's just the way things were this year. Baldur's Gate 3 was a runaway hit in a year of runaway hits, and there really wasn't any way it wasn't going to go home with Game of the Year at the very least. It was a really, really good game with a ton of great ideas, and it set the standard for content and new releases. And a lot of its great ideas went against the normal boundaries of what you'd expect from a game that achieves this level of mainstream success and attention. You know, the same way that we all knew Elden Ring was going to sweep in 2022, we all knew Baldur's Gate 3 was going to sweep in 2023. But since the lead up to the Game Awards this year was so salty on its own, it shouldn't be that surprising that after the Baldur's Gate 3 sweep, multiple fan bases within the gaming world completely collapsed, because it's not every day that a fantasy RPG beats a Sony exclusive and a Zelda exclusive for Game of the Year, and good God almighty were people upset about this. It's amazing to me still that every single year the flowchart of events in the Game Awards is exactly the same. The nominations are announced, a bunch of people denounce the show as a whole because the corporate stooges didn't agree with all of their opinions, and a bunch of people start preemptively running victory laps because the corporate stooges agreed with their opinions, despite the fact that if this were literally any other situation, they would be dismissing everything those same exact corporate stooges were saying. And then, eventually the winners are announced, and everything explodes, while people like me didn't even watch the show because I was too busy actually playing games, and I don't give a shit what people who aren't me say about the games I may or may not care about, especially when literally the entire internet was in full agreement a month ago that the people running the Game Awards don't actually represent gamers because they nominated a non-indie game for Best Indie, and a single-player RPG for Best Ongoing Game, and Destiny 2 for Best Community Support, and a dude who didn't even coach this year for Best Esports Coach this year. The fact that anyone takes this show seriously is just so stupid. But hopefully we can all come together and at least recognize that it's nice to witness even the stooges acknowledge that Baldur's Gate 3 was a fucking moment. Like, even if you didn't like the gameplay, or even if you're not an RPG kind of gamer, we should at least be able to acknowledge that Baldur's Gate 3 set the standard for what we should be expecting from future games. But alas, you clicked on a video about the internet exploding over Baldur's Gate 3 winning Game of the Year, and I will not keep you waiting any longer, so pour some coffee, use code JOE for 10% off a 40 gaming mouse pad, and let's chuckle at some people who were way too upset about their favorite big budget sequel getting beaten out by a fantasy RPG where you can fuck a bear. Ziggy Sullivan says, "This is rigged. Baldur's Gate is only popular across TikTok. Tears of the Kingdom deserves the spot." Because Zelda wasn't all over TikTok for fucking months. There weren't a million different viral clips of people's weird-ass Zelda builds. No, Baldur's Gate 3 is only big on TikTok. Only big on TikTok. Which is why it sold over 2.5 million copies during its early access period. You know, before it had any mainstream attention. But yeah, let's go with this idea that Baldur's Gate 3 is only popular on TikTok. We'll just go with that. Also, we'll go with what you say here about the show being rigged. Please, could anyone explain to me how Larian fucking Studios would be able to rig the Game Awards over other nominated publishers like Sony and Nintendo? Oh, you can't explain that? How surprising that is. The Brit Nova says, a turn-based combat game winning Game of the Year in 2023? Have we gone backwards? Believe it or not, there are a lot more ways to create engaging gameplay than just by dragging you along a string and having you smash buttons over and over again. And that's coming from someone who just recently replayed Bayonetta 1 for the 10th time. Turn-based games require a lot of thought and strategy. That's why they really connect with a lot of people. I mean, the most obvious example would be Pokemon, which sells a million bajillion copies every time a new one comes out, and no one ever complains about it being turn-based. Just because it's not flashy or super fast-paced doesn't mean it's not engaging or tense or exciting. Like, why do you think competitive card games are so fun? Yu-Gi-Oh! Would not hit the same if both players could just throw cards out whenever they wanted to. Turn-based combat isn't outdated or it's something we should have left behind, you know? It's just a style that's not as popular in big AAA games nowadays, largely because it's hard to put turn-based combat into a trailer, and AAA games need to put the budget on screen at all times. But whatever, let's just move on. And just be prepared. You're going to see a disturbing amount of people in this video denounce turn-based games as a whole, because that's where we're fucking at now. Mocap4K says the biggest reason Spider-Man 2 lost Game of the Year was because it's a PS5 exclusive when not everybody got a PS5. Baldur's Gate 3 was on every single platform and had a wider global audience it could depend on. Spider-Man 2 was a phenomenal game, but was the vocal minority. Yes. Yes. Baldur's Gate 3 had a wider audience than fucking Spider-Man. Put your opinion back in your mouth. Oh my god. This has to be one of the most oblivious things I've seen in a long time. Baldur's Gate 3 was on every platform. No, it wasn't. At the time of the Game Awards, it was only available on PC and, wait for it, PS5. The Xbox version dropped during the Game Awards, and a Switch version is probably never coming out, because seriously, how the fuck would a game like this run on the Switch? But the denial here is what kills me. Because, like, Spider-Man 2 was obviously well-known and accessible enough to be nominated, and it was only a couple years ago that Game of the Year was awarded to a PlayStation exclusive, and now, all of a sudden, PlayStation exclusivity is what kept Spider-Man from winning. It had nothing to do with the fact that maybe Baldur's Gate 3 was just a better choice for the award. No, it was because Spider-Man 2 was a PlayStation exclusive. Which is extra funny because it was just a few weeks ago that the PlayStation guys were mocking the Xbox guys for talking about the Xbox tax, but here come the PlayStation dudes now talking about a PlayStation tax without calling it a PlayStation tax. I love this. It's great. Squeeps the God says, this has me so worried about the future of gaming. Tears of the Kingdom was above and beyond Game of the Year. Yes, the fact that the almost universally loved bare fucking indie RPG won Game of the Year over Breath of the Wild plus Gmod means we need to be concerned about the future of gaming. Truly, we live in a society. Mateo says, literally never heard of this mid game. Never heard of it. Mid. Never heard of it. Mid. Divine DTT says Baldur's Gate 3 over Spider-Man 2 has to be the biggest joke of the year. Who actually played that game? So, we're using the who played it argument when Baldur's Gate 3 sold more than the game you think should have won. Like, Baldur's Gate 3 was believed to have been at over 10 million copies sold on Steam alone back in, like, October. So for all we know, it could be well above Spider-Man's numbers. But even if it's not over Spider-Man's numbers, it was one of the best-selling games of the year. So, weird move, but, yeah, weird move. BTC117 says, turn-based game won Game of the Year. That's the state of the industry. Again, I don't get the feeling the people saying this would have this kind of reaction to a turn-based game winning Game of the Year if a Pokemon logo was on the box. But that's just me. Xanderflow says, this rigged like the boxing matches. What a disgrace that Spider-Man 2 didn't win. Ah yes, because once again, Larian fucking Studios would be able to rig the Game Awards over Sony and Nintendo. That's definitely something that could happen. There's no other explanation for Baldur's Gate 3 winning. None at all. Kiddo Williams says this game is so overrated and boring and absolutely ridiculous that Spider-Man 2 doesn't get anything. So, gameplay heavy RPG, boring. Cutscene heavy Arkham game, snubbed. Ridiculous. Like, if you want to talk about the state of gaming, I think this attitude is way more indicative of the state of gaming than Baldur's Gate 3 being recognized on a big stage is, you know? Seriously, it's like I said last year when people were flipping out about Elden Ring winning. If you aren't interested in seeing anything other than the standard AAA gameplay format be recognized in the gaming industry, you might want to reconsider what it is you actually like about video games. Because this medium is capable of so much more than just the standard AAA formula, and the only way we're going to get more games that get away from the standard AAA formula is if you stop openly rejecting those kinds of games when they appear. Junior says, just smashed my TV in rage. The wife and kids are crying now thanks to Modern Warfare 2 being robbed. Name a game with more rich story and accepting community than COD. No notes, moving on. At Aquatoad says, a turn-based game, eye roll emoji. Fuck, you people genuinely just aren't capable of playing non-AAAs, huh? Like, lighten up. There's so much more out there just waiting for you to play, but you won't experience those games because it's not exactly like everything else you've already experienced. It's honestly just kind of sad. The One Who Knocks says, this game is not even that good. It's so mediocre. How does a game like this win almost every single award? And your profile picture is literally just a PlayStation controller. Ironic does not even begin to describe this. Cracked Phantom Lion says, overrated, just like Elden Ring. A year later, and people are still mad about Elden Ring for basically the same reasons they're mad about Baldur's Gate. God forbid a big gameplay-heavy game get recognized on a large scale. Mugetsu says, nobody played that game. What the fuck? Zelda or Spider-Man should have won it, with 2 laughing, crying emojis. Because the only way that a game could be good is if you played it. Right? Here's another one that does that same stupid thing. Amik says, Tears of the Kingdom was the winner. I didn't know this Baldur's Gate existed. Because there's no fucking way a game could be good without you knowing about it. Maybe if you expanded your horizons to non-AAA, non-giant budget, non-heavily marketed games, you would find some really fun games. Huh? No? Jason says, yeah, this was bought and paid for. Great game, but no chance it's Game of the Year caliber. What? I don't get this. Baldur's Gate 3 was up on stage with Spider-Man, funded by Sony, Zelda and Mario, funded by Nintendo, Resident Evil, funded by Capcom, Alan Wake, funded by, I think, Epic Games. And you think Larian Studios bought the award? You think all those companies up there would be outbought by an indie studio that a lot of people on Twitter admittedly they didn't even know they existed? Also, I can't resist but point out the fact that you're bitching about a non-existent bought and paid for award when you bought your fucking blue check mark. If anyone is buying stupid things, it's you! Fuck! Oh my god! Plush Madness is honestly congrats, but something like Zelda, Spider-Man 2, Mario Wonder, and Assassin's Creed Mirage, one of those games should have got Game of the Year. You think Assassin's Creed Mirage should have gotten Game of the Year over Baldur's Gate, or Zelda, or Spider-Man, or Mario, or Alan Wake, or... You think Assassin's Creed Mirage was Game of the Year? That's... And two... You think... You publicly think Assassin's Creed Mirage should have gotten Game of the Year. Siri, play Given Up by Linkin Park. And bring me my razor. That was dark. Maybe I shouldn't put that in the video. Tears of the Kingdom should have won Game of the Year. That game came out of nowhere. So, are you talking about Zelda coming out of nowhere? Because no, it didn't. Or are you talking about Baldur's Gate 3 coming out of nowhere, which is irrelevant to winning an award if the game is good? This is dumb. This is dumb. I'm done. That was my 18th tweet. I had 25 of these. There's 6 more. That's how math works, right? No, 7 more. God damn it, I hate my life. I can't even get to the rest of these. I'm too tired, and this is ridiculous. Look, the Game Awards. I lost my train of thought. I said the Game Awards and just lost my train of thought. Yeah, I'm done. Toodles.